There are places you pass every day, houses you've never noticed, roads you've driven 100 times. But what if something has been watching you the whole time? They say every town has its secrets. Some are buried in the ground, others are trapped in the walls. Across the world, ordinary people report extraordinary experiences. Unexplained footsteps in empty hallways, missing time no one can account for, shadow figures lingering in the corner of the room, voices captured where no one was standing. Are these stories tricks of the mind, or glimpses into something we were never meant to understand? From whispered legends to documented encounters, we examine the evidence, the testimonies, and the questions that refuse to stay buried. This is where the line between reality and the unknown begins to blur, where the unexplained comes to speak. So turn down the lights, lock the doors, and whatever you do, don't listen alone.
Welcome to the darkness.
Hello everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the DG Paranormal Research Team podcast.
Hello everybody, we hope you're well.
Hi everyone, hope you're ready for it.
Alright then guys, if you're ready, I'm going to jump in with story 1, which is absolutely fascinating, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, let's hear this one.
So, story 1 is called The Thank You. And this has been sent in by a lady that worked in an undertaker's.
Oh, crikey, okay.
So it goes as follows. I was on shift at the funeral home when we had a really heartbreaking case. A young lad had sadly taken his own life. That's very sad, isn't it?
Yeah, horrible.
Because of the circumstances, he wasn't in the best condition. Despite this, his mother had asked if she could come and see him the day before the funeral. About an hour before she was due to arrive, I went to check on him to make sure everything was in order. While preparing him, I noticed something disturbing, she says. As I was checking him over, I noticed his mouth moving slightly. When I looked closer, I realised what it was. Oh, maggots.
Oh my God.
How awful. I carefully removed them and made him presentable, ensuring that when his mum came to say goodbye, she wouldn't have to see her son like that. They do a good job, don't they? Yeah. When she finished, she returned to her office. She says, I was the only one in the building, and that is when it happened. Suddenly, I heard the door to his room open and then close. Footsteps began moving slowly down the hallway. They walked right up to my office door, which then opened, and the footsteps continued into the room. I could hear them walking around the side of my desk. I froze. I sat there still, completely frozen. And then I felt something else. My hair moved. Despite the fear creeping in, she said something felt different. She said, I felt scared, but at the time, strangely safe. So I spoke out loud into the empty room. You best go back to your room, your mum will be here soon. And just like that, the footsteps turned. They walked back out the office, down the hallway, and the doors closed behind them. To this day, I believe that moment wasn't something random or my imagination. I believe it was the young lad himself coming to say thank you for making sure his mum wouldn't see him like that one last time.
Oh God, yeah, that is a brilliant story, isn't it?
It really is. That's kind of warming, actually.
Absolutely. What more could you ask for?
I mean, it's not the sort of job that everybody would want to do, is it? Let's face it. So, but I think everybody's in the back of their mind, if you were doing that job, you'd expect to have a paranormal experience at some point, wouldn't you?
Definitely. I mean, it takes a certain kind of person to do that job, I think. I think
Yeah,
you have to be very open-minded and also very calm. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, what do we make of that story?
Okay, so taking the emotion out of the situation, because it is a very sensitive issue, let's see whether we've got an explanation for these footsteps, this lady's hair moving, and for the door opening. I mean, that's not a regular occurrence in normal life. So, Graham, have you got any thoughts on that?
I mean, for the footsteps, I know I'm not Graham. For the footsteps, we have to explore, could it be rodents? Could it be a pet? Who else is there with her? She said she's alone, but does she have a dog at work with her?
Could it be an echo? Could it be footsteps from maybe an adjacent building or outside?
Could the door slamming be a breeze?
Exactly. There are lots of questions here. And could her hair have been caught on her jacket or the chair? I don't know how long this lady's hair is. Yeah, there are quite a few questions around this one. I like to believe it was the young man going to her and saying, thank you so much for making sure my mum doesn't see me like this. But you do have to question what else it could be. You can't just immediately put it to the paranormal, can you?
No, absolutely. That's precisely the point.
But yeah, I think overall that's a really good one that we've had sent in there, and it's a really strong start for this one.
Yeah, I agree. Let's keep them coming, eh?
Definitely. So I think it's over to Graham for story 2.
Yeah, I hope you like this one, guys. This has actually come from a newspaper cutting, and it's local, so it's the village of Hunton in Kent, and this is what it says. Do you walk around the recently planted fenced area of woodland to the north of Bishop Lane? Several weeks ago, Wendy and I were enjoying a stroll in the late winter sun. In the distance, about 100 metres away, we saw a woman in a light-coloured puffer-style jacket walking towards us with a small white dog on a lead. We passed through the gap in the hedge and turned to say good morning, expecting the woman to be even closer. To our surprise, though, there was no sign of a dog walker. I know. She had been in an open space. There was nowhere to hide or vanish from view. I went to the place that we had seen the lady, thinking that she might have collapsed and be in some kind of trouble, but no, nothing. Once back at home, enjoying a cup of coffee, we tried to rationalise what had happened. In the end, our only explanation was that perhaps we had seen a ghost. The next day, whilst chatting to a friend who was out for a walk with her dog, I recounted our experience of the day before. But to my amazement, she told me that she had twice seen a woman wearing the same clothes and walking the same dog, like us. She had looked away briefly, put a lead on her own dog, looked up, and the woman had simply disappeared in broad daylight on this open path. So it then asks, so if you have seen the same thing on this location or elsewhere in the village, send a message. What do you think about that?
Wow, I think that's quite something. I'm trying to compute it in my head, how multiple people can see the same apparition.
Right, what we've got to consider is we've got 2 separate witnesses on this occasion, on 2 separate occasions. They've both seen the similar thing or the same thing.
Yes, yeah.
The features, the dog. I mean, what is this? Is this pareidolia, or is it just like a recording from the ether? You know?
Well, yeah, the stone
tape theory.
Stone tape theory. Yeah, it could be.
It could be
residual energy.
Exactly. Yeah.
I just find it interesting that these people who are having this experience are saying that the person is wearing the same clothes with the same dog lead, etc. I don't see how anybody could discount this story, to be fair.
No, you can't discount it. Obviously, separate witnesses, it proves something's happening there. Something is going on there. But what we need to decide is what's going on there.
I mean, it's local to us in Kent here, so perhaps we should visit the location and actually have a look at the landscape, see if there is somewhere someone can actually duck down out of view. That it might drop down to the side. We need to go and have a look, I think, and see.
We need to investigate this.
I think that is a very good idea.
There we go then. So that's one of our Saturday mornings sorted. Thank you so much, Graham, for reading that one out to us, and that's a good one to find there. We're going to move on to story 3. Mariette, would you like to read out your story 3?
I'd love to read out story 3.
Lovely.
Okay, here goes. This is titled Odd Experience at Mother-in-Law's Funeral.
Ooh.
Several years ago, we lost my mother-in-law, who I love dearly. At her wake, her son had recently gone through a difficult divorce, and there was some uncertainty about whether his ex-wife would attend. The ex-wife had been very close to my mother-in-law and was loved by all of us. When the ex-wife walked into the room, I saw something I still can't fully explain.
Ooh.
It looked like an arched banner of flowers appearing over her head.
Oh,
The only way I can describe it is that it felt like a message. Take care of her.
Really?
I went over, gave her a hug, and tried to help her feel comfortable in what was clearly a very emotional and complicated moment. As others began to welcome her, she seemed to relax. I know how strange that sounds. I've never had anything like that happen before or since. I don't know what to make of it. Is this a thing? Thanks.
wow. I think it is a thing.
It clearly was a thing because
Yeah.
he saw it. I mean, we can't take away the fact that he's witnessed this, and whether it's in his mind or whether it's actually happened and, you know, anybody else saw it, we can't answer that.
It's really, clearly like you get messages perhaps from the other side where it is given to you and nobody else. Do you think it could be
Yeah.
something like that?
It could possibly be something like that.
It could be that.
It'd be interesting to know if anybody else saw anything around
That's
her.
what I was about to say.
You know,
yeah.
You know, if anybody witnessed anything, not necessarily the flowery arch or whatever, but whether they saw a light, whether they saw anything.
Definitely. But I do think that's a nice experience again.
Again,
Yeah, that's a nice story.
Experience. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Thank you so much for sending that one in to us. It's just a nice warming one again, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And we are, of course, sorry for your loss there. Okay, so our next story is called Encounter. So, this person says, "This is my encounter with a ghost in my home. I've had a personal encounter with the spirit in my home. The first and most notable experience is a tall, thin, dark male figure. He's around 7 foot tall, although that might not be accurate because he was floating a considerable bit off the ground. I know it's a he because of his body and a conversation that I had with him. And here's how it went. I was walking into my room to get some socks. When I walked out of my room into the hallway, that's where I saw him. The tall ghost was there, in the doorway. Both he and I were as visibly shocked to see each other as the other. I believe he gasped, but what I'm 100% sure about is that he jerked his head backwards out of surprise.
Crikey.
He then looked towards my parents' cupboard and disappeared out of sight.
Ooh.
I had a conversation with him late into the night. This is a different night. In my bedroom. He appeared at my doorway and I asked him yes or no questions. And it went as follows. Are you a ghost? Answer, yes. Are you a male? Answer, yes. I asked other questions, but I really cannot remember them right now. And the next encounter I've had with him is this. I was in my bed and I was trying to sleep. I'm looking towards the doorway, and around the door frame he would peek his head, watching me. I felt cold, I felt scared, and I did not sleep. So what do we make of that? So she's seen the spirit, she has asked the spirit's question and got answers, and she's seen him peeking his head around her door.
I think this one is really interesting because it throws up the subject of an interactive spirit.
Yeah.
She is saying that the spirit locked eyes with her and gasped. Now, do we go towards time slips?
Yeah, there's a possibility that this is a time slip. It could also be another dimension. We're getting into Bermuda Triangle territory here. If it is another dimension, it's basically the same thing happening in each dimension and people seeing it differently. It was once explained to me that time was like a river flowing past you, and depending on which part of the bank you're stood on, depends on what you see going through that time. So whether people believe that or not, I don't know. Have we got another dimension? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's just fascinating that, the way I've had it explained to me, I did ask someone to dumb it right down because it's just the easiest way, isn't it? Is that you sort of like bend time and that sort of slips into another dimension. I mean, it's getting into like freaky deaky cat territory with that, I think, because that whole concept just really freaks me out, although it's fascinating. But could she have been tired and hallucinating as well?
That is a possibility. Let's discuss what she's seen and how she's seen it. First of all, like you say, is she hallucinating? We don't know the age of this girl, because sometimes your mind can play silly tricks on you. Is she seeing something? Have we ruled out that it could be a shadow? It could be a trick of the light. It could be anything along those lines.
It could actually be pareidolia, because, that's where the mind creates the illusion to see something recognisable in anything.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, the thing that gets it for me is that he gasped at her, and she is 100% that he jerked his head backwards out of surprise. Like, that, I can't compute that if it was pareidolia, or, imagination, etc. Is she imagining this figure is jerking its head backwards? I just don't know. How do you explain that?
I mean, he's answering questions that she's asking, so how do we explain that one? There was a report several years ago in the West Country of teenagers seeing what they referred to as a shadow man. This was a tall, dark shadow of a man, but nobody else ever saw it. And again, the teenagers saw it, and every time one of them saw it, another one saw it. So is this something going on in our immature brains?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to ask these questions, haven't you? Around anything paranormal, really.
As I always say, more questions than answers.
Definitely. I completely agree with that one. But thank you so much for sending that one in. I enjoyed reading that one. And yeah, shall we move on to the next one, guys?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so who is going to read out our next one?
I've got rather a good one here if you want to hear this.
We do want to hear it.
Okay, so this person has very kindly messaged us and left this story for us to read out, and here goes. I've had many experiences, but this is the one I talk about the most because it unexpectedly involved two others. One December evening, several years ago, I was inside Rochester Cathedral with two other bell ringers after it was closed to listen to a quarter peal being rung for somebody's birthday. We were originally outside but came inside because it was cold and it had started to rain. The three of us were at the bottom of the pilgrim steps as you enter the main part of the cathedral. The cathedral lay in darkness. Only the small area where we were in was lit. The other two ringers were sitting down and I was standing facing them. We were busy chatting away, and we all stopped at the same time. I immediately looked left, and at the same time, they looked into the main part of the cathedral. I asked them, "Did you hear something too?" They replied, "Yes." I said, "Right, okay, after three, we all say what we've heard." I counted, and after three, we all said, "Dragging." We were all gobsmacked and said it sounded like a cloak dragging along the stone floor right by us.
Wow.
I know, in the main part of the cathedral. We still talk about it now.
That's interesting because this is a story about Rochester Cathedral, and I have had a message from somebody completely separate about Rochester Cathedral saying, have you investigated there and have you been there? Because I have recently been there and it really, really freaked me out, so much so that I had to leave the building. So that's quite
interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah, obviously there are happenings there, because I think on this podcast you will see an image that has been uploaded to a Facebook group that somebody took, and it wasn't until a few months later they examined it, and you can actually see a see-through figure of a person wearing a cloak. Now, I showed the person who sent in our last story this image, and it said it made them so excited and they were going to share it with the other two people. But it will be on this podcast, that image, but I think it also adds credibility to the story.
It certainly does. I mean, we've got three independent witnesses actually hearing the same sound at the same moment, and in the same location.
I mean, that is sort of like paranormal gold.
That is paranormal.
100%, yeah.
Wouldn't that be great to have got that on some sort of camera?
And if you think about it, the history of a building like that goes back so many centuries, and the amount of people that have passed through its doors for good and bad times in their life, it's not surprising that these buildings hold spiritual activity, is it?
Absolutely. There's definitely spiritual imprints on these buildings with all the history that they hold.
Definitely, I completely agree with that. And what an amazing experience.
What a very lucky 3 people they were.
Maybe we should go as a 3.
That would be a great idea. What do you think, Graham?
Yeah, everything's worth a go, and especially when you might be able to back up the stories you've heard yourself.
Definitely. I mean, it would be amazing if we had the same experience, wouldn't it?
It would just clarify everything, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and again, it's Kent, so it's local to us. So that will be another Saturday morning of ours filled. Lovely. Yeah, that was amazing. Thank you so much for sending that one in. And I really enjoyed that one. That one was really good. So, who is going to read our next story?
That'll be me.
Oh, lovely. What have you got for us then? Come on in.
Right, this I think is absolutely a lovely one. I really like this.
Oh, I can't wait.
Right, are we ready?
Yeah, we certainly are.
Right, my dad passed away when I was 15.
Oh.
On several occasions, it seemed like his spirit had been looking out for us since. One such occurrence was when my niece was a toddler. She was upstairs in her bedroom asleep while my sister and I were downstairs watching TV. Since the TV was on, we couldn't hear my niece choking on her own vomit.
Oh, God.
She had been fine when she went to bed, and we had no idea that she had become so sick so quickly.
Bloody hell.
All of a sudden, a framed picture of my dad as a baby dropped from where it hung on the staircase. The frame shattered all over the stairs. We ran to clean up the glass. When closer to her room, we could hear my niece in distress.
Oh, God.
It's often felt to us like my dad was getting our attention that night to save his granddaughter's life.
Oh, my God.
Oh, that sort of sends shivers through you. That's really sweet.
I
isn't
think
it?
that's so nice.
Story.
Not that she was choking on her own vomit. What's nice is that somebody's still looking out for her, even
Definitely.
though they're no longer here in physical form.
And it was the photograph of the dad that fell and smashed. Like, that's pretty incredible. I think your dad is looking out for you there. I think he's watching over you all.
I can't say any more than that is so nice. And yeah, take comfort in the fact that you've got your dad looking after you.
I absolutely agree. It does sound like somebody from the other side was keeping an eye, and you do find that.
Absolutely. That we've got hundreds of reports of people basically being warned of something going on.
Yeah, and I do take comfort in things like that someone on the other side, like a loved one, is looking after them, because it just sort of reiterates to me that your loved ones are there.
Absolutely. And I think, Daisy, you've had experiences like that in the past, haven't you?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I will write up and probably tell you guys on the next podcast my experiences.
Oh, yeah, that would be good. Like to hear those, thanks.
Maybe we should do one next time of our experiences.
That'll be a long one.
Yeah, it would, wouldn't it?
Okay, so this one has been sent in by a man who says he's in his 60s, and he says, "This is my unexplainable experience. Your views, please."
Oh, okay, yeah.
Hi, everyone. Hello. I would just like to relate my only experience with possible ghosts and something that has befuddled me ever since. In September 2001, I moved homes. The previous house was purchased in 1986. It was an older style house, probably built in the 1960s or early 70s. I bought it when I was single, rented it out for a couple of years, but after I married my wife and later, my 2 daughters lived there as well. When we moved, I arranged to move out over a 3 to 4 day period due to a steep driveway, resulting that all of our possessions had to be moved by small vehicles instead of a truck. It's a bit of a bugger. On the last day, when we had everything new in the new house, I said to my wife that I would go back to the old house and check we had everything and then hand the keys to the agent in the local shopping centre. At this time, we had already given one set of keys, my set, to the agent, so I took my wife's set of keys to go into the house and then over to the agent. This is where the first thing that I haven't been able to explain happened. The front door had 2 locks on it. When I got to the house, I started to unlock the door. My wife's keys would not open the door. The keys just turned in the lock, but nothing unlocked. I called my wife to check if her keys worked. She confirmed that when she unlocked and locked the house the day before, they all worked fine. Okay, fine. I then called the agent and asked if I can come there and pick up my set of keys that we had left there a few days earlier. After picking them up, I returned to the house and was able to enter with no issues. I walked around the house and did the usual things, opened cupboards, etc. to make sure we had everything. This is where it gets a bit freaky. I went into one of the 3 bedrooms. This room was used as a library/study. On the wall was a small whiteboard that I was leaving behind as it was attached to the wall quite firmly. On the whiteboard were a couple of phone numbers and some other notes. Can't remember exactly what else. I lit my fingertip to rub the details out. At the point I did this, my whole body went completely ice cold. A cold that I've never experienced before or since. Concurrently with this, I heard the sound of a crying, maybe moaning woman. Strangely, it seemed to be coming from all around and not one particular direction. I guess it's safe to say that I freaked out, ran to the door and drove back to the new house. When I returned and walked in the door, my wife asked if I was all right. She said I was so pale. I told her what had just happened. I think about this quite regularly. For a long time after, probably 10 to 15 years, I would regularly, maybe every 2 to 3 weeks, have a consistent dream, nightmare, about someone being killed and buried under the house. The dream was always consistently the same and always woke me up and I was sweating. So that's my unexplainable experience. I will add that I'm a semi-retired 64-year-old IT consultant and I consider myself fairly open-minded and intelligent. Any thoughts or possible explanations, please?
I really like that story, but the thing that sort of strikes me about it is the experiences did not happen during residency of that house. It was only following him moving out and then going back that he experienced things. So I find that interesting. And
I find it interesting that, yeah, like you say, it didn't happen when they lived there. But what is the very strange thing is it almost was kind of trying to keep him out.
yeah, it's like you're gone now, you're not coming back, isn't
exactly.
it?
It's like, oh, we don't come out now.
That's really, really odd.
Yeah.
And to then have the dreams afterwards and in such a negative way, maybe that house held a secret that still needs to be uncovered.
It would be interesting to find out the history of the house and the ground.
Definitely.
And see if there's anything going on there at all.
Yeah, I agree on that one. I mean, it's just amazing that nothing happened when they lived there. Perhaps moving out disturbed it.
And maybe they're protected.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It could be, but yeah, this is the kind of thing I'd like to know more about, to be honest. There's a lot of questions with this one.
Definitely. This one raises more questions than answers.
Yeah.
Definitely. And the fact that he mentioned the cold, I mean, we've all experienced that when you just know something is there. That cold is bone chilling, isn't it? And yeah, I mean, I like that.
Yeah, that's an interesting story.
Yeah, again, we do have more questions. I mean, you have to think, could it have been something outside? Were
Yes,
windows
yeah.
open? What were the conditions that day?
Yeah.
Could it have been wind howling around the house? That kind of
Could it just
thing.
be a dodgy look?
Yeah,
Yes, it's knowing all the factors, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
So, again, it's down to personal experience. You know, unless you're really there yourself, he's recounting it as he remembers it.
Absolutely.
So we have
And
to take his word on
as
it.
people say, your mind is very powerful.
It certainly
And
is.
it can manipulate things to
Yeah.
make you think there's something else.
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. But that is a good one. Thank you so much for sending that one in. And I think we have one more story in the books here.
Did you want to read that one out, Daisy?
I really don't mind, Graham. I'm happy if you wanted to.
No, you carry on.
Alrighty. Our final story goes as follows. I was staying in a friend of my husband's house overnight. It's kind of the wrong story. Maybe you've said Yeah. My husband and his friend had gone out for the evening, and I was settling down into bed. I turn off the light and go to sleep. Sometime during the night, I get the sense of someone watching me, and I open my eyes and I see my husband standing at the foot of the bed. Well, not exactly my husband. I see the dark outline of a man with his shoulders slumped slightly forward and his head bowed. I say my husband's name and reach for the side light. When I turn it on, the shape vanishes.
Oh, right.
Needless to say, I messaged my husband to make sure it wasn't him somehow, and sure enough, he was still out with his friend. Now, I would have chalked this up to my eyes playing tricks on me, except when I mentioned it to my husband's friend's mother, she brought up the fact that their house was haunted by the spirit of a farmer who died on the second floor where I was staying. So, that's my ghost story. What do you make of it?
I think that's a fantastic story. I really do. I mean, you've got a sighting of a person right in front of their nose, basically.
And it's basically been reiterated by the second witness.
Yeah.
Same thing, it's talking about the haunting.
Yeah, the credibility is quite good with this one, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Definitely. I mean, you do have to explore the fact of shadows,
You
etc.
also have to explore the fact that could somebody have broken in. She's
God,
there on
yeah.
her own. The husband and the friend are out.
Yeah.
Could she have been in that house and has she had a real good escape from something else?
Yeah, and the first thing you're probably going to think of, rather than paranormal, is, as you say, has somebody broken in? Is that person standing in front of me somebody that's going to harm me or rob me? Your second thought would be ghost, not your first thought.
100%.
The fact that it has been mentioned by somebody else would rule that out, because how can it?
I would also like to know the farmer that died on the second floor where the lady was staying, if his death was traumatic, for starters, because that can keep a spirit sort of grounded, so to speak. And have they actually had any, has the friend's mother had any experiences with the farmer spirit?
I think that obviously the experience was kind of like overwhelming, probably. But the way that it's explained that the spirit manifested themselves didn't look as if it was in a horrible way. They were just standing there looking down. Yeah, so maybe it's a ghost who's sad in nature. It doesn't seem like there's any malice there, does it?
No, definitely not. Just observing, it sounds like, doesn't it? Like, who's this in my house if it was his home?
It really needs some
I agree.
history of the area.
Definitely.
And of the family, really.
Yeah, 100%. I really like that one as well. I've liked all of the stories tonight. They've been absolutely brilliant.
I totally agree. We're very lucky to have great listeners like yourselves write into us and give us these great stories. We love reading them out. We really do.
Thank you for sharing them with us.
Yeah, we really do appreciate it. And we hope that you're enjoying this series. If you do have your own story that you'd like to send in, please do. Our messages are always open. You can contact one of us directly and we will read it out on our next podcast. If you wish to remain anonymous, we will, of course, keep your name out of the story, like most of our listeners prefer.
And please do.
Definitely. So I think from us here at the DG Paranormal Research Team, it's a thank you and a good night.
Thank you, everybody. As ever, we look forward to making the very next one, so stay in touch.